next Saturday. Something came up. I got a lot to go through with you guys this morning. Like, observations. How many of you paid attention to how many people were in the field this morning for this week? Did you notice how many people stood up? Were in the field, and then how many apps we wrote this week? You guys pay attention to that?
Yeah.
Like, it's starting to really take off. And one of the things that I told you guys, right, is a rising tide does what? Lifts all boats. A rising tide lifts all boats. So what kind of boats does it lift? Old boats. New ones. Young ones. Old ones. Experienced ones. Inexperienced ones. All the boats get lifted as the tide is rising, and you guys have been pushing the tide up. So I want to just talk about what this looks like and what it feels like, because as the office grows, as the energy grows, as more and more people keep showing up, more and more guests, more and more new associates, it's exciting, but can I be honest with you? Yes? No?
Yes. Yes.
There's some unique challenges that don't exist, that do exist in the new environment that don't in the old one. And so I want to prepare you for them and walk you through them, because they're going to happen. If they haven't happened to you or inside of your little team yet, I promise you they will as we continue to grow, so I want you to be ready for it. Okay, so a couple of things. Before I get into that, the Train the Trainer, or T3, the progress checklist. If you haven't turned one in yet, please make sure you turn one in today. And all that's doing is saying, here's the classes I've already tested out of. A trainer tested me out, and an SMD tested me out. So, Warner, you want to real quick, I think I have those on my desk.
Yeah.
You want to grab those and just put those in the, or actually just anybody that raises their hand, give them to them. Apologize to Steve for me. So I want to make sure you guys get those in, because we want to know, like, what classes are pretty much we don't need to teach right now, and which classes do we really need to teach. So that's number one. Number two, can somebody post in the Chino group me the Google survey? Can somebody post that for me right now? Sean's going to post it for me right now. If you have not filled out the Google survey, literally while I'm speaking and training this morning, I want you to fill out the Google survey. Because it takes like 2 minutes, and it's like yes or no questions. It's not like you're writing an essay to get into college. Who needs one of the progress checklists? Who did not fill one out this morning? Raise your hand real quick, raise it. This is for the Train the Trainer classes. Fill it out, put your name on it, check off which classes you've already been certified in and Train the Trainer, both by a trainer and an SMD. And then make sure you get those back into me or Warner, okay? Yes?
The Google survey is on the Chino group.
Sean's going to post it on the Chino group
There's
right
a lot
now.
of us that aren't on
Oh,
it. They're not on
why?
it. Well, Dean gets information on there and then he passes it on to us. They're not on it.
Has he passed on the Google survey to you? In that system, I don't think it's working. Yeah. Yeah,
It's all like the
talk to
large
Dean.
book.
I don't know why you wouldn't be on it, because it's not mine. It's like we have other SMDs that aren't in my hierarchy on there, and it's just it's another place just to share information, share success stories, questions.
Right.
It's a bigger support group. So, but talk to Dean if he wants to keep you guys in the dark. It's okay. If he wants to control all the information and when and how you get it, it's okay, right? But it would just make sense. That's why it's called
Right.
Chino Office and not like Team Freedom Chino, right? Ricky, you on Chino group me?
Yes.
You in my hierarchy?
Not yet. No.
I don't play that way. All right. A couple of reminders. I know Ricky went over these. Classes start for the Train the Trainer at 7:45 on a Saturday morning, and they start at 5:45 on a Wednesday. Now, if on a Wednesday you're busting hump from work, and as soon as you get here is 5:50 or 5:55 or 6, we still want you to register and we still want you to come. But on a Saturday morning, like, if you're just sleeping in and drooling on your pillow and that, like, get here on time. Get on, because they're only 45 minutes, and trust me, there's a big difference between a 30-minute class and a 45-minute class. Because there's a little bit of like getting started time before you start really getting into the reps, especially as you get into the more sophisticated skills. So just like, I was the first one in this morning, shockingly, and then 2 new guys on Kute's team were the number 2 and number 3, Malik and Phil. So, and then like everybody started to eventually show up, but like just make a commitment. Let's max this out both for you. You've got, if you want to be a big leader, big leaders are the people that make all the money in our company. You've got to begin acting like a leader before the team happens. And so acting like a leader is setting the right example. It's showing up early, it's being prepared. And so be aware of that. Just because you don't have anybody on the team, or I only got 2 people on my team, or they're not even going to be there, like you want to begin to build the habits. You don't want to wait until you have a team and then figure out like, I got to start rebuilding sort of correct habits. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Trainers, you need to be here 15 minutes before the class starts if you want to continue to be a trainer. You can't show up when the class is supposed to be starting. That's not fair to the trainees. Okay, so you were chosen for a reason. We believe in you, but you got to be here early. You got to be prepared. You've got to have the scripts. You've got you should have all of the resources that you need to run the class or to run all of the classes before it starts. Is that clear, trainers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Those are a couple of to-dos. Somebody's recording, I think. Okay, you are. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about a growth environment. What kind of an environment?
Growth.
Growth environment. Okay? That's what we're in right now, is a growth environment. What does that mean? Here's what it means. There's lots of people, there's lots of activity, there's lots of moving parts. There's good and bad with that, okay? So, the good with that, I'm going to skip forward. What are the characteristics of a growth environment? Number 1, there's lots of activity. Put that in your notes. Lots of activity. Lots of activity. Right? We saw that today. All of the confirmed guests, all of the appointments, all of the first appointments, all the second appointments, all the guests that actually showed, right? Mm-hmm. There's lots of moving parts. What's there lots of?
Moving parts.
Moving parts, right? Because you're like trying to coordinate the guests and who's signing in and Mozone, and you're trying to, who's going on this appointment, when are we going to do the F&A, and who's going to do the F&A, and what illustration, and do we need to get feedback, and do we need to shop the market, and are they on meds, and all that sort of stuff, right? Here's a real biggie. A growth environment involves lots of change. What does it involve?
Change.
Change. Lots of change. Lots of change, right? Or as Posty would say, how can I make sense when I got millions on my mind? So I don't drop a bar on you. So there's a change. We're getting out of our comfort zone. And here's like a really exciting word to use. There is chaos. How many of you want to be a part of a growth environment?
Aye.
Yes.
How many of you want to be a part of a growth environment?
Aye.
How many of you want your businesses massively growing?
Yes.
How many of you want your businesses growing super fast?
Yes.
Logically, we say those things because those things are congruent with our goals and it's congruent with the identity of who we want to become. What we don't think about as we're like getting excited about these things is this. So there's lots of activity and sometimes it's overwhelming, all this activity. It's like, I'm not sure, and there's all these balls in the air, I'm juggling all these different things, and I'm going to drop some balls. Put this in your notes. If you're going to drop balls, drop the rubber ones, not the crystal ones. If you're going to drop some balls, drop the rubber ones, not the crystal ones. Why? Crystal ones shatter, and they're expensive to fix or replace. They're hard to replace. Rubber ones bounce, you can get a second chance, sometimes a third chance. When you go from, here's what happens, you go from a little boutique and everything's cute and feels comfortable and you know everybody's name and you know where everybody's at and like everything is just sort of established and cushy and everybody's friendly and all this, and you start growing a lot, there's a tremendous amount of change. We've got new people coming in, we've got guests, we've got new personalities, the dynamic changes the team. It's like all of a sudden the leader starts paying attention to maybe some new person and not as much to me or as the old person. There's all this change going on. We talk about our comfort zones. There's 6 human needs. We've talked about this and trained on this a number of times. 6 human needs. And we all have 2 of them that are dominant. We all have all 6 human needs, but 2 of them are dominant. And Vanessa's 2 are different than Mickey's 2 probably as far as what's dominant. But the most common human need that human beings share is the need for certainty. It's the need for what? Certainty. They need to feel certain that things are predictable, that they know what's going to happen. When we don't know what's going to happen, that's where anxiety is created, fear, stress, worry, doubt. It's a lack of certainty. I'm not in control. I don't know what's going to happen. When things are small and stable and we're not growing, we're just sort of maintaining, there's very little doubt, very little fear, very little worry. The only worry is how am I going to pay my bills because my business ain't growing, right? But there's very little stress and pressure from a business. It's all manageable. I can control everything. But when we start growing things, we get out of, like, there's a lot of uncertainty. I have this need to control everything so it's predictable and there's certainty, but I'm having troubles controlling everything. I feel frustrated, I feel overwhelmed, and I just want to get back in control where things are predictable and certain. How many of you can sort of understand what I'm saying? Yes?
Yeah.
So what's the challenge with that is subconsciously we begin to self-sabotage. Because we so much dislike the feeling of uncertainty, we so much dread the feeling of not being in control, because when we're not in control, there's a possibility of us looking bad. There's a possibility of us making mistakes. There's a possibility of us hurting people's feelings. There's a possibility of us failing at something. And nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to make mistakes. Nobody wants to be labeled a failure. So, we fear that when we're out of control. That those things are going to happen. So subconsciously, I start to make things more manageable and controlled, right? I create more rules, or I'm more demanding, or I just do things that artificially, oftentimes, and we see this happen all the time, cause a growth environment that's getting started to go back to a stable environment that's more manageable and controllable, because I feel in control, and I feel more certain, and I feel more comfortable. Even though what I want is this, as I start getting into this, it gets scary and unpredictable. You have to be self-aware of your emotions and what's going on and what's causing them or triggering, okay? Chaos. And here's the one that we all love. A growth environment is filled with stress. What's it filled with?
Stress.
Stress. It's filled with stress. Lori, right on time. Perfect job.
Thank you.
Did you ball?
I did.
You did? You balled in there? Like bald wheat or like balled out?
I balled out.
Balled out! That's right. Give it up for Lori. Yeah! She's fully engaged back in beast mode. Completely back in beast mode. She's had a number of false starts. She's like, yeah, I didn't get going in the business, and then sort of went through some of this. Now she's back in, and she just dove in, submerged, full, just totally all in. And all of a sudden, all of these latent abilities and skills of hers that have just been dormant, just resting beneath the surface, are just exploding out of her. And those of you that have been working with her, they're oozing, you're just grabbing all kinds of great stuff out of her, right? There's that old saying, don't wake a sleeping bear.
Yeah.
Because when you do, it's a freaking bear. Somebody woke that bear, right? Yeah, and she ain't one of these cute little cuddly pandas. That's a grizzly right there. She's got the track record to prove it, right? By the way, give it up for Bill Caldwell. Didn't he do a great job? Legit great job. Stress. We've talked about this before. There's 2 kinds of stress, right? One, right? There's 2 kinds of stress. Excellent. Eustress and distress. Distress is I'm overwhelmed, I'm freaking out, I've got too much debt, I've got a boss who's a jerk, I'm in a bad relationship, I'm in a really constrictive or restrictive environment with lots of rules. People tell me what to do. Like boot camp is filled with distress, right? Eustress is you're in the gym and you're working out with muscles. Is that creating stress on your muscles? Yes or no? Yes, but that kind of stress causes your muscles to grow. Eustress is when I discipline my child. Discipline is stress, but it causes my children to grow in character, in mindset, and skills and abilities. Make sense?
Yes.
There's a big difference. We have a tendency in our culture to look at all stress as something we want to avoid. Here's what I've been teaching for a long time. If you don't choose eustress, choose it. If you don't seek, if you don't go towards eustress, you will wind up with distress. If you don't choose to eat right, exercise, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, go to the chiropractor, get your nails done, right? If you don't choose to take care of your temple, you're going to get some sort of disease or you're going to get out of balance health-wise. And that's going to be distressful, and it's going to force you to course correct. If you don't financially live below your means, save, get papered up, be liquid, invest long-term, manage your money smart, you're going to have distress financially. That's going to force you to learn this lesson. If you don't choose to honor your relationships and be unconditional in your love and a servant and really do the right things for others, there's going to be distress in your relationships that's going to force you to break them off or learn these lessons. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In every area of life that's important to you, you have the choice daily to choose eustress, but let's be honest, you go into the gym and push a bunch of iron or run or do a bunch of cardio, it sucks. It's painful, it hurts, it's uncomfortable, but you either choose this kind of uncomfort that growth comes along with it, or you're going to wind up with this kind of comfort and you think that you're not choosing it, that this is just happening. It's not just happening to you, you chose it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay. So, in each area of your life, if you're not choosing the hard work of living below your means and saving your money, listen to me, regardless of how little income you have, saving money is a habit. It's not about an amount of money. It's about a mindset and a habit. Exercise is a mindset and a habit. It's not like whether or not you have time to go to the gym or can afford to. It's about choosing the stairs instead of the elevator. It's about choosing to park as far away as you can, not circling the parking lot 10 times trying to find the closest spot. It's a mindset. It's a habit. Okay? Eustress versus distress. In a growth environment, there's lots of stress. In my opinion, for the right individual today, this is going to be crazy good stuff for you to learn. For the right individual, here's where stress happens. Okay, you've got, say, you and some other person. This could be a teammate. This could be a spouse. This could be somebody that's on your team. It could be one of your leaders or mentors. It could be somebody in the matchup situation. It could be somebody that you're training, but you and another individual. I want you to take notes on this. Some of you are really shitty note takers, and you're not going to be a big leader. I'm just being frank. Some of you rarely take notes because you just think you're going to remember and memorize everything, and you're not. Some of you rely too much on audio recordings. It's not as effective. Like just research shows, you want to be taking notes, detailed notes, as if it's the last time you're ever going to hear the topic, and you're going to need to be training on this the rest of your career. That's why you take notes. That's why A students do it in school. They do it for letter grades. We're doing it for millions of dollars here. Just something to point out. You and another individual. Here's in my mind what happens. We decide that somehow we're going to work together and do something. Whatever it is, right? And here's what I want you to understand. When we decide to do something, most of us, I believe, have the best of intentions. You've got good intentions. I've been managing and leading people for 3 decades. For 3 what? Decades. That means I'm old. That's a lot of time, right? 3 decades. The thousands of human interactions that I've gone through that look like this, where I've had some sort of leadership, coaching, or mentoring role, it's innumerable, really. And every time that there's some sort of disappointment or frustration or upsettedness, if that's even a word. How many of you have ever been in a business or personal relationship with somebody and things go sideways emotionally?
Yep.
Ever been in one of those?
Yep.
Those of you that are married should probably keep your hands up, right? 'Cause I know you have, right? Come on now. All you single people, just it gets there and you're just like, later, next, right? The married people are like, I can't do that anymore, right? Here, and like literally working through thousands of these kinds of situations between two individuals, almost never do I find that one of these two people has bad intentions. Like they're trying to take advantage of the other person. They're trying to hurt the other person. They've got some sort of evil, sick, conspiracy, plot, twist going on. It's almost like, no, we both want to do this and we've got really good intentions together. Well, how do these things happen if we've got good intentions? You want to know why they happen? It's all about expectations. It's all about expectations. Expectations are not clearly communicated. What do I mean by they're not clearly communicated? Instead of being clearly communicated, they're assumed. They're assumed. So what happens is we start off together, and then somewhere down the road, this person winds up here, this person winds up here. Now, watch me on this, even you good note takers, watch me on this. This person fully thought that when we get here, this person would be with them. This person totally thought when we got started, when they get here, this person would be with them. How could they not know this is where we were going to wind up together? Or this is what I expected out of them, or this is what I needed, or this is what they should be doing? How did that person not know this is what we should be doing, or this is where we should be, or what's wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with them. They're two good people who have good intentions. Write this in your notes. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Lots of people have good intentions. Good intentions don't always lead to good behavior. How many of you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You ever had like really good intentions about something and really massively screwed something up, or am I the only one?
No.
Right? Yeah. Like I had to, so how do we avoid this? For the right individual, this is going to be great. So, a couple of things, a couple of dynamics. One, always, how often?
Always.
Always properly set all expectations. Set what?
All expectations.
All expectations. What do I mean by that? Here's what I've learned to do over time, and I want to encourage you to do. If Warner's going to run a matchup appointment for me, I want to break things down step by step. Number 1, Warner. Number 2, number 3, number 4. I want to communicate with Warner at a 4th grade level, but I'm not talking down to him like he's a 4th grader. What I mean by talking to him at a 4th grade level, I want to keep things that simplistic where there's nothing to figure out. How many of you have ever gotten a text from me? Like, is it like always broken up into paragraphs, number 1, number 2, number 3, bullet point, like it's always very organized? True or not true?
True.
Because I want to be very clear, very specific, very precise in my communication. I don't assume anything. I'm not vague. Even if I've communicated to you a number of times on the same topic, still take the time to make it clear, because I don't want to leave anything to chance, because I know what happens when I leave things to chance. it's going to go sideways too much of the time. And here's the challenge. When it goes sideways and we got to fix it here, it's always way more work, way more energy, and way more negative consequences than the small amount of time it would be to set the proper expectations here. Skipping this step is going to lead to this. Taking this step will avoid it most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. But when this does happen, we always have something to come back to. Remember when we started out, I said 1, 2, 3, 4, and you agreed to 1, 2, 3, 4? My kids, like Jack, my youngest, my 13-year-old, has a tendency where sometimes he forgets things that aren't important to him. But like, if I leave in the house in the morning, I say, Jack, I want your room to be perfect, like, because my wife and my oldest son have been out of town, so Jack, when I get home today from the office, I want your room to be perfect. Not like pretty good, like perfect. That means under the bed, that means the closet, everything, right? Number 2, I want you to feed the dogs. There's a little bit of fresh dog food in the refrigerator, mix a little bit of that in. Number 3, I want you to make sure you let them out regularly, okay? He's like, okay, fine. Then I say, Jack, what is it that I want you to do today? If he can't repeat it to me, then I haven't done a good job of setting expectations. I'm not assuming he heard me. I'm not assuming he remembers. I'm not assuming he gives a... So, I'm going to set expectations. I wasn't talking down to him, but I was being very clear and very specific. Okay? So you've got to always set proper expectations. You've got to, what else? You've got to get buy-in and agreement. Buy-in, oh, I spelled that wrong. Buy-in / agreement. What do you need to get?
Buy-in and agreement.
Just because you set expectations, you can't assume that they're agreeing with you. You can't assume they remember you. You can't assume anything. So I've got to get buy-in and agreement to here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it. And then after the fact, you need to over-communicate. What kind of communicate? Over. Once again, you can't assume. You do these things, you're going to avoid a whole lot of this. And in a growth environment, these kinds of things happen more often. With guests and who's doing interviews and who's doing fast starts and what happened on the fast start and who's doing the matchup and what happened on, like, all kinds of these things are going to happen. And when they happen and we're not being smart about it, this happens. And when this happens, we lose recruits, we lose sales, we lose field training opportunities, we lose production, we lose chargebacks, like we lose all kinds of stuff. And here's what I know, just because I've done this so many times. In this, when I'm sitting down with these people, guess who the red guy thinks fault it is?
No.
The green guy. Guess who the green guy thinks is right?
No.
The red guy. It's never their fault because why? Because they have good intentions and they know what their intentions are. Let me teach you something about like a growth environment. Is this helpful? Any questions on this?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
No? How many of you think you can remember this?
I have a question.
Yes. How many of you think you might need to study this and bring it out frequently to like remind
Yes.
yourself?
Yes.
How many of you realize that sometimes you're not as clear and specific as you think you are? Yes? Hey, ladies, if you're married, you gotta really do this with your husbands. We're idiots. We're only thinking about one thing. Okay? So all that stuff you're talking about, we're like zoning out, we're thinking about one thing. So you've got to get really good at directing us and getting us to do what you want us to do. Right? We've got good intentions, believe me. I'm excited.
When we're setting expectations and you're over communicating, what form of communication would you prefer?
All. So one of the things when it comes, that's a great question. What form of communication? I always believe the best form of communication is the one that the listener, it's their style. If Kim's a big emailer, I probably should incorporate that into my communication. But I hate emailing. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's stupid. Doesn't matter. She's the one I'm trying to communicate with. I got to enter into her world. Now, I may use my preferred to overlap it, but I always want to include her form. Okay, good.
So you would establish that criteria immediately, like when you find out what their best way of communication is?
Yeah. For sure. Other questions?
When you, in the over communication phase, have you ever been accused of or been guilty of, like, talking down as a result of the over communication?
So first off, I've been accused of everything under the sun. And guilty of more, right? Guilty of more things that I've been accused of. So yes and yes. It's something I've consciously worked very hard at for a long time, to not talk down to people, but I want to keep things very simple and clear. So I don't assume things, I will repeat myself. I think part of it is your energy and the way that you're communicating things. Can I give you a couple of tips on that?
Yeah.
So when you're this may or may not apply to setting expectations, but there's a couple of tips I've learned that are great reminders for us. How do we communicate difficult things? Because when we're in a hot environment, a growth environment, things are stressful, things are tense, people are frustrated because there's so much going on. So my communication style needs to be important. So sometimes I'm busy and frazzled and overwhelmed, and I gotta realize, okay, I gotta take a time out, deep breath, and just be present in this moment. And just do my best right here and right now, and then I can go back to being crazy again. But if I'm just barking out like as it's coming to me, there's a good chance that's not going to be received the right way. So I'll tell you this, for me, like most conversations I have where I'm sitting down with somebody or on the phone with somebody, I almost always have bullet points in my notes folder on my phone. To keep myself mentally organized, because is it easy for conversations to go off on their own tangents? Yes or no, right?
Yeah.
So I always have bullet points because I want to remind myself, and also having bullet points helps me to be more measured and less emotional. Especially when I'm talking about more emotional things or more stressful things. I want to take the emotion out of it to be effective.
You prepare for the conversation, basically.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just like somebody's waiting in the lobby and I'm like, oh crap, they're here and I was supposed to be with them 5 minutes ago, I'll take an extra minute or two just to real quick, boom, boom, boom. Like I'll literally do that. I probably have more notes in my note folder than all you guys combined, because I never delete them. I don't know why. It's just like I should, but I got a lot in there, right? Other questions. So here's the tips I was going to give you. I want you to write down these specific words. I don't mean to be rude, but. I don't mean to be rude, but. I don't mean to be rude, but. Silton, I don't mean to be rude, but you'd look a lot better with hair. Like, I'm kidding. I wish I could shave. It's totally a joke. I wish I could shave it like him because he looks great without it. I can't pull it off. But when you say, I don't mean to be rude, and you mean it.
But.
No. Here's the thing. Everything that I teach, it's always about your intention. So if I genuinely don't mean to be rude, and I say, hey, look, I don't mean to be rude, what I'm saying is, this is going to be difficult, but I really don't mean to offend you. I don't mean to be rude, I don't mean to offend you. Those are two, okay? Third one, can I give you some feedback? Now, anybody that I've given feedback to, not all the time, but I bet about 85, 90% of the time, if I've asked you if I can give you some feedback, I bet 85 or 90% of the time, I've asked you if I can give you feedback a minimum of 3 times before I do. Why? Because when I say, hey, can I give you some feedback, and someone goes, yeah, he doesn't really mean yeah. Most of the time. Most of the time, he's not really ready for the feedback. I'm like, I don't know. Are you sure that, like, you really want to sit down and have some feedback? And he goes, yeah, I really want it. They go, I don't know. I think it's important, but do you think now's a good time really for you to get some feedback? Yes, I really want some feedback. Now he's ready to receive it.
So you're saying ask?
No, I'm saying ask 3 times. I'm saying ask 3 times. Because if I ask once, he's going to give me a knee-jerk reaction. Hey, can I give you some feedback? Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, can I give you some feedback? Yeah. He doesn't really mean it.
Right.
He's not really ready to receive it.
Right.
Like, he's almost bracing himself. I want him to beg for it. That's why I used to do it at the club.
I can see that.
Please dance with me! Buy me another drink. So, like, that's another thing that's in these kind of conversations that's going to help you a lot. Here's the third thing, or the fourth thing, whatever number we're on. I learned this from Sam Lin, and I think it's genius. When you're going to have a tough conversation, here's the rules. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give it just to you three. Who are the three? Come up here. Look at the left. Are you ready?
Yes.
Say what you mean. Say what you mean. Mean what you say. Don't be a pansy. But don't say it in a mean way. Say what you mean what you say, but don't say it in a mean way. Faylene, if we translate that to Mandarin, does it rhyme as good, or do we lose the rhyming thing? Say what you mean what you say, but don't say it in a mean way. We can have difficult conversations without you being like the Gestapo and having to be a bully and having to like hit somebody over the head with it, okay? So, can I give an example? Okay, so, let me give an example. Yeah, give me a minute. Yeah, so, David, can I give you some feedback?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you sure? Okay. Because you know how much I care about you, you know how much I believe in you, you know how much I really want you to win. But part of winning is like for us to sort of course correct and get better as we go, right? So, are you good? Okay, so here's one of the things I love about you. You always dress sharp, man. You're always clean. You're always knotted up, suited, booted. Shoes always look like they got a good shine on them. Sometimes, and here's what I love too, is like your breath is always fresh. You always smell. Like, that's important because some people don't brush their teeth, or you know what I mean, or got bad breath, or some people do that. You may want to just sometimes just dial down the cologne a little bit because sometimes it may just come off a little bit strong. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I think I think it's great that you wear it. I love the kind of cologne, but maybe just a little bit less. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I totally just made that up. I don't even know if you wear cologne. I said what I meant. Like is that a difficult conversation to have with somebody?
Yeah.
I've had to have that in my career. I can remember early in my career, it smelled like the guy spilled cologne on him every time, right? So say what you mean what you say, but just don't say it in a mean way. Okay? Can I give you guys some ideas of how to lead and how to follow in a growth environment?
Yes.
How to lead and how to follow. Make that all caps and double underscore it in a growth environment. Okay. To continue the growth, this is all these are going to be hard ones. Leaders must work together. How do leaders have to work?
Together.
How do leaders have to work?
Together.
Hey, it's easy to work together when you do stuff the way I tell you to. Like that's what people don't mean that, but that's what they mean. When Lori and I aren't working together, it's because she's not doing it right. Well, I know that leaders need to work together. She's just not working with them. No. So what do I mean by that? The core of every relationship, I don't care if it's like a marriage relationship, a parenting relationship, colleagues, at the core, a leader, mentor, right? The core of every great relationship, the foundation, the most important piece is trust. It's trust. It's trust. So for leaders to work together when things are going really, really fast, leaders need to trust each other. Hey babe, I'm in the middle of general training. Is everything okay? Hello? Hello? Pretty sure she did.
That was Michelle, right?
Yeah, that cute little pooper of hers, yes,
Okay.
yeah. She did one of those.
Yeah, you were saying
Now I'm
what?
gonna be really
Yeah,
distracted
yeah.
for a while.
You started thinking about
My advice to all you single people, find somebody to love you as much as I love her.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's that one thing.
Woo! Still crazy about that girl.
Refocus.
Trust. Here's what this means, and I think the marriage relationship is the perfect. So, there was a time in our marriage when when I would say blah, 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 and my wife would get pissed and offended. And I would be like, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was blah, 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 blah. And then her response would be, I know what you meant. That's not what you meant. And she'd be more pissed and offended. Okay? I want you to listen to me on this. There's no basis of trust there. Because what you're telling me is, I know what you're thinking better than you know what you're thinking, A. Or B, you're lying to me just to get out of trouble.
Right.
Both violate a foundation of trust.
Right.
The only way this works, the only way for us to have trust in the relationship, is I have to give her the benefit of the doubt and she has to give me the benefit of the doubt, unless we've just burned that bridge way too many times. Right? I've got a relative who's an alcoholic. I can't continue to give this person the benefit of the doubt because they burned that bridge too many times. And I hope sometime in the future I can. I hope they rebuild that, but I can't. But in my marriage relationship, I sure as heck can. So she says something crazy. I was like, whoa, pump the brakes, sister. And she's like, no, that's not what I meant. There's the ego part of me, the pride part of me that's like, my feelings have just been hurt. My emotions are high. Write this in your notes. When your emotions are high, your intelligence is low. When your emotions are high, your intelligence is low. Think about that one person early in your life that you fell head over heels with when your emotions really high. Did you make really good decisions? No. Think about that time you were in a disagreement with your spouse or somebody else you really cared about, and you were super intense, frustrated, pissed off. Did you make really good decisions and say really smart things?
No.
You thought you were smart, right? When intelligence is high, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Okay? So, in these moments, that's not what I meant by that. Here's what I meant. Deep breath. Don't react, respond. Don't react, respond. There's a difference. Don't react, respond. Deep breath. Bring my emotions down to neutral, or close as I can. And accept what they're saying, even though it sounds difficult, because you know what you heard. You're pretty sure you know what they meant. But if you can't give them the benefit of the doubt, then there's really not a lot of trust in that relationship. And if there's not a lot of trust in that relationship, it's really, really hard to do big things together.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is, like, it's hard, listen to me, it's hard enough to do that in a marriage relationship, to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially when our feelings have been, like, hurt a little bit and stepped on. It's even harder in this environment, because I don't need to sleep next to any of you all night. Like, we're not married, right? So it's even harder to give the benefit of the doubt in these kinds of relationships, because I don't have to. That one I should. This one, like, for you, it's the right thing to do. Sometimes you may think they're undeserving of it because you think, I'm not so sure they really mean that, what they're saying that. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them grace. Because, can I give you the flip side of the coin?
Yes.
In a hot environment where there's lots of activity and lots of things going on and lots of balls dropping, there are going to be moments where you're going to want some grace. There's going to be moments where you need some grace. Not somebody questioning your integrity or what your intentions were. You got to get what you want to receive, and if the environment's going to keep going like this and getting more intense and more pressure and more responsibility and more stress and more growth, more uncertainty, man, I gotta know I can count on her, she can count on me. I gotta be willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, she's gotta be willing to give it to me. I gotta know we're in this for the long haul. Whatever this little thing in the moment is that seems so big is something small in the context of what we're doing together. It's not that big of a deal. Like, the longer I've been married, the more I realize most of the BS that we fought about the first 10 or 12 years was just so stupid. It was my desire to be right, her desire to be right, and not be wrong. And like, it has nothing to do with anything of any significance whatsoever. It's not in my nature to be just like a welcome mat or a dish rag and just let people walk all over me. But what I realized is, I can agree with a whole lot of things or not be right or not be in control or not be in charge of a whole bunch of things and not be a dish rag, not be a welcome mat. Like, me being right about everything and making somebody else wrong doesn't like negate me being a welcome mat. It's probably more of a sign of insecurity than strength. Sorry, somebody didn't like that I just said that. Right? Woo! I wasn't talking to you.
It's all good.
So, support each other. Leaders and colleagues, like inside of the base shop, you may not be on the same team. Outside the base shop, somebody may be on somebody else's team. Like, you gotta have each other's back and you gotta support each other because we need each other to keep going like this, right?
Yep.
We can't undermine each other, right? So, we can't undermine each other. So if Tom's telling his guys one thing and I'm in the Mo zone or in the office or on a matchup appointment with one of his guys, I don't want to contradict or undermine Tom. I'm just going to let it go. Even if Tom's not necessarily doing it the right way, that's something I better circle back in and have a conversation with Tom, not with the person because maybe I've got wrong information. Maybe that person heard it wrong from Tom. Maybe they misunderstood Tom. I got to give Tom the benefit of the doubt and circle back with Tom. Not undermine him and throw him under the bus because I don't want Tom doing that with me and my guys. Does that make sense? So if you have questions about things, go back to the leader. Here's another thing. If you've got any kind of things that are going sideways, what kind of things going sideways? Anything. Immediately communicate with the leader involved, like if you're a matchup with the leader involved, and immediately communicate with an SMD. And here's sort of my rule of thumb. People tend to under-communicate because they think, oh, well, we're too busy, or they don't have time, or I don't want to seem like I can't handle things. My preference is I would rather you communicate 3 days too early than 3 days too late. Like, you're doing a fast start with somebody and they built a top 33 list instead of a top 100 plus list. I better find out about like that the moment it happened, not like the next meeting 3 days later. Right? You were supposed to do a fast start and somebody didn't show up for it. I better find out about that like the moment they didn't show up, not later. You went in to do a close and the client didn't buy. I want to find out about that immediately. And it's not about making anybody wrong. It's about our role is to help when things are starting to go off track, to do everything we can to get them back on track. The longer you wait, the farther they get off track. Sometimes you have a guest or a new associate or somebody you just started field training, and they start to, oh, I talked to my uncle and he said this, or I went on a website and it said that, right? Immediately you should be conversing with the SMD. What people do is they try and fix and handle that themselves. And because of a lack of experience, they usually make that situation worse. Once again, the person that's trying to handle that situation, what kind of intentions do they have? The best. It's not like you're intending to screw it up. You've got the best of intentions. It's just the first time you're doing it. Like, Gracie is how do you say it? Is it a marriage and family therapist? Is that what you call it?
I am a mental health therapist.
A mental health therapist, okay? I can't tell you over the decades how many couples I've referred to therapists and encouraged them to go. Why? Because you're having this little disagreement or this little problem in your marriage, and it's like a big deal because you're like emotionally invested in the problem and in the relationship. You've got no academic understanding of the situation. You've got no professional training, and this is the first time you've ever experienced this problem. You sit down with somebody like Gracie, she's been academically trained how to handle it. She's helped thousands of people deal with the same problem that you're dealing with for the first time. Who do you think is, and she's not emotionally involved. She doesn't have a dog in the fight. So she's going to help you to unwind that thing, give you the tools and the resources better to take it to the next level than you two trying to figure it out on your own. It's so obvious, right? People have the best of intentions, but they oftentimes don't use all the resources available to them. So if something starts going squirrely on a new recruit or a guest or anything of that nature, or a family or a spouse, get people involved right away. I can't believe it happened. Okay.
Christopher,
Yes.
on the top of my notes,
Yeah.
what's that say?
This is just like therapy.
I missed my calling. I should have been a group therapist. Maybe I am, and you guys just didn't know what you got into, right?
Well,
2
you have
minutes.
So you have the time to answer, so you should be just-
Okay, can I give one other thing, and then I'm going to break the guest for the guest, and I'll wrap things up?
Yes.
Yes.
There's going to be, if we're going to keep growing, and we are, no doubt about it, we're not going to subconsciously sabotage. As we keep growing, there's going to be little skirmishes, little disagreements. Give each other the benefit of the doubt, support each other, get a leader involved, and here's what I want to tell leaders or individuals, let's handle it immediately. Like, drop what you're doing and handle it immediately. When you don't handle personal problems, personal issues, people hang on to them. The longer they hang on to them, the more they fester and the more damaged and the more toxic they are. The quicker we handle them and resolve them, the quicker we find out it wasn't a big deal. We didn't set expectations. It's the leader's responsibility to be setting the expectations. So it probably wasn't either one of yours fault. At the end of the day, it was probably really the leader's fault. Not your fault anyway. Let's fix them quick so that they don't hang on and linger, because we need, here's what I don't want to go, well, I'm not going to use Fortune anymore because of blah, 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 blah. Don't be dumb. Of course you want to use Fortune again, right? And the way that we do that is we've got to maintain and foster healthy relationships as we're growing. Crap, I can't believe I didn't get through the second half. We got some really good guests. What? Yeah. All right, guests. What do you like most? Part about helping people, part about making money, when's your interview, run the play. If you can't get an interview, if it feels like you're twisting their arm, settle for the F&A. Settle for the F&A, all right? So if you've got a guest or you need to help somebody with a guest, please go. Lori, can you assist in there as well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Uh-oh. All right, guys, it's 11 o'clock. I'm not going to start the next topic because it's literally another half an hour, 35 minutes. So I'm going to leave it there. Any questions on anything I covered? And then we can use your help mozoning as the guest end. Any questions on anything I covered?
Yes. Will you
Yeah.
have a part 2?
What? I'd like to, yes. The part two is all on the matchup system, how it works, how to max it out, why to use it. It's all about the matchup system. And I had that first, but I just decided, you know what, I wanted to go through the people stuff first, because the people who are the most successful, the biggest leaders, tend to be the ones who can influence in a positive way lots more people that have way different personalities than them. There's a lot of leaders that, like, you see, like, they're not just in the duplication business, like they just work really well with people just like them and not as well with people that aren't like them. And so I want to teach you, like, how do I broaden my sphere so I can create a more diverse organization, more diverse leaders, and work with different personality types that aren't like me, without getting frustrated or impatient with these people because they don't think like me. They don't have to. They don't have to. So, good question. All right. Phil's out of training. So is Tim. Good job, Tim. All right, you guys. Base shop meetings after the meetings, elite circle meetings after the meetings, and let's help the guests.
Oh, yes.